All right. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, let's get started. So I'd like to say thank you so much for taking the time to come today to our session on cloud war stories. This is going to be some tales from the front lines. I am personally super excited because I got the chance to draft the questions, and I'm pretty excited to hear the answers of some of the folks who are here, as well as hear their answers to your questions. So I'm particularly excited to introduce to you guys this panel. This is a group of people that we work with very closely, some of our most distinguished customers, a very intelligent group who've built a remarkable set of services. Let me just actually start off with some introductions so you can meet them. I'd like to start on my left is Don McCaskill. He's a CEO, founder, and also he calls himself Chief Geek of SmugMug. Don and I both have twins, and he hosts my kids' photos, so I'm very personally invested in their company. I'd also like to introduce Jeff Kimsey. He's head of US product management for global data products at NASDAQ. They recently launched a super exciting product called FinCloud. It's a set of services targeted explicitly at the financial industry. Very cool. Peter Esposito is perhaps the most athletic of the six of us. He comes from the US Tennis Association. And in his tenure there, he's rebuilt all of their data centers, so has a lot of experience. Greg Arnett, another company we work with very closely, Sonian. He's a CTO and founder. Sonian is a document archiving service, probably archiving your email in the background right now while you guys are sitting here. And last but definitely not least, I'd like to introduce James Petz over here on the left. James works at Amazon. How many of you guys have ever ordered something on the Amazon website? All right, yeah, me too. I did some last night. You want to say thank you to James. James runs all the databases at Amazon, so if you're ever wondering where that data is coming from, it's coming from James. He also handles their backup and archive strategy. You can imagine that's fairly critical for Amazon data, and that's how he and I originally met, because that's all coming back to Amazon S3. I'm Stephanie Cuthbertson. I'm the head of product management for a bunch of the storage services, and I'll be the moderator today. So just to give you some idea of how we're going to do this session, like I said, I was pretty excited to get a chance to talk to these guys, so I got excited and drafted a bunch of questions. And I'm going to ask them some things and give them a chance to respond. But then I'm going to open up to questions from the audience as well. So I want you guys to start thinking about, you've got this really cool group of people. I know how hard it is to find time with folks at a conference like this, and it's your chance to ask whatever you want. So start thinking. But first, let's get started. I thought I'd start by talking about lessons learned. What's a lesson learned on the AWS platform that you think would be really valuable for this group of people? And if you can talk about that, and then maybe the story that goes along with it, I think we'll start with Don and do maybe 2 minutes each for everybody all around.
Yeah, so I think one of our biggest lessons learned is simply that we can do a lot more with a lot less manpower. So most of my great war stories happen to be on-premise rather than AWS. Luckily, most of our AWS stuff has been without event. And so one of our earliest problems with storage was once when a data center provider sold our power allotment out from under us to a bigger customer. We had already agreed to it. We had a contractual obligation, but it turned out that Yahoo was more important than SmugMug. And so with very short notice, we had to move dozens of racks worth of hard disks across town. We're a tiny startup, and so we couldn't hire an expensive moving company to do it for us. So we came up with this strategy of, we had enough station wagons in the company that we could just bring 3 station wagons to the data center, fill them literally to the gills. They were, hard disks weigh a lot. When you put hundreds of them in a car, it weighs it down such that the wheels are almost rolling in the wheel wells. And we carefully plotted out 3 different routes through cities. So if there was a car accident or a train hit one of them or something like that, we'd only lose 1/3 of our data, and we had 2 other replicas, and we'd be good to go when we arrived. So literally in one evening, one overnight session, all of SmugMug came and tore down one of our data centers and loaded them up and moved them across town. We vowed that would be the last time we ever done it, we would ever do it. And I think shortly thereafter, we got a phone call from AWS, or Amazon, the bookseller, I thought at the time, saying, we know we sell books, but we'd like to sell you some storage. Are you interested? That was early 2006, and we haven't looked back since.
Cool. All right, let's go with Jeff.
So I wish I had an awesome story like that as far as station wagons or minivans or Mack trucks or something like that. But I'd actually like to talk about when we first created our market replay product, which was about 5 years ago. So we were the first exchange to really embrace the cloud. And we wanted to create a robust product that, that allowed us to essentially store and deliver 8,000 securities historical tick data. So to put it in context, each of those 8,000 securities typically updates many times within the second. So you can imagine how much data that is. And when we went to our technology department to get a price for it, they said, it's probably going to be tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, our jaws dropped, hit the floor, and we said, well, this is really a non-starter. Can't we buy less? Well, you need to be able to scale it, and if you just want a little bit of data, we can't buy half a SAN server. So it was right around this time that Amazon was out, and we kind of looked into it a little bit, and it seemed extremely compelling to be able to buy just what you're using. So we decided to go with Amazon with that, and it really allowed us to to focus on what we did. And that first bill came in, it was December of 07 at $21. So pretty compelling.
All right, over to James.
Okay, so I hope nobody thinks that I'm a ringer here. As Stephanie's mentioned, I am an employee of Amazon.com, and I just don't have any war stories. Everything has worked really well for us. So I feel like a bit of a fraud. The lesson we had is that if something works, you take a look at it, you kick the tires, you make the plans the same as you would for any other product that you might be evaluating. Just try it and see if it works. You may get some immense benefits from it. We got tremendous benefits shifting several thousand database backups from going to a tape infrastructure, which we recognize is potentially a bottleneck if we need to do massive parallel restores, to something which scales out nicely horizontally. It's not just a matter of getting the data in and backed up. You have to be able to plan for getting it out. We did some fairly intensive tests about getting the data back out. We're just very, very happy with it, and that's all I have to say right now.
All right. Peter?
In our early adoption of moving to the cloud, it was the days before elastic block storage was really available, so everything was pretty much instance-based. And as we're deploying servers, we put a bunch of web servers out there, put a bunch of database servers out there, very impressed with how everything was operating. But one big mistake is I'm spawning up these new servers, just keep putting them in that same availability zone. I say, why are there 4 availability zones? Why would I ever need to use more than one? Until the first time the Virginia data center had a problem in one of the zones, and every server went down. And now we're stuck with instance-based servers that you can't turn off, otherwise you'll lose all your data. This is before Elastic Block. So we struggled through, I think it was maybe a day of downtime. I said, all right, we learned our lessons. We started moving more and more stuff over to Elastic Block storage. But still never moved out of a single zone. So there was another time and another problem, and once again, all my servers dropped out. At least this time I had everything Elastic Block based, and I was able to bring it up in another zone to get my systems back up and running. But you gotta really look at what you're doing and realize there's a reason they give you 4 availability zones, and you should definitely use them.
All right.
Great.
And Greg and Sonia.
So I'll wrap up the first war story regales. So Sonian we're on a mission to archive the world's electronic documents to the cloud, and we focus on a business enterprise class audience. So our prime directive is don't lose any data. Customers trust us as we are the data authority, because when they archive, they then get rid of their local copies. That's the whole point of the archive. It's that anchor, it's that kind of sort of solid, rock-solid bedrock for a customer's storage foundation. And so the story I'm going to tell you is not related to losing customer data, but it's related to some heartaches around that journey of basically making the cloud work for us. So we've been in the cloud since 2006, originally with just S3, and then in 2007 we incorporated EC2, and the co-founders in the company have been in this domain area for a long time of archiving information, and we saw the promise of Amazon, the cloud provider at very low cost with high reliability, to solve a problem for an audience that we knew really well. And that really was the benefit of why everyone should be using the cloud. It lets you focus on your domain expertise and not in that kind of data center muck as we heard this morning in the keynote. So the story I'm going to tell you is about automation, and it's a big theme you're going to hear about. If you've been in the cloud so far, you know you have to automate everything. You can't halfway automate, you have to fully automate, and you got to remove human hands from everything. So as part of our data processing pipeline, we generate secondary information on customer objects, such as indexes on data, full text indexes, metadata, and you know, on our journey to full automation, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, we were kind of halfway automated, and late night we were working on systems configurations and kind of growing and expanding our system, and one of our DevOps engineer made an honest mistake at the command line and deleted instances that hosted our secondary customer indexes, meaning we didn't lose primary, but we had to basically go through some heartache of recovering secondary indexes. And that was a lesson learned of don't automate halfway, because if you have a human has to issue a command that then does a bunch of automated things, that command could be done in error, very honest mistake, we've all made that, and you're wiping out instances which hosted EBS volumes of customers' indexes, and it basically put us into a fire drill to go rebuild indexes and so forth. So the lesson is, and I have many lessons to share with this audience because we've been doing this for 5 years, and we've gone through every single pain point you can imagine, and we still love the cloud. It's the right use case. We're doing, you know, all the best things of what the cloud is built for, but don't halfway automate, don't have human hands involved, and don't have injected complexity in an already inherent complexity world.
Yep, I think that's a very good lesson. I completely agree. Well, let's see, I'm going to ask a question targeted maybe at some of you who are more enterprise-based and moving to the cloud, and then I want to ask a question which is maybe more interesting for some of the startups in the room. Let me start with a question. What changes have you guys made? And I'll actually start with James on this one, because he's done something really interesting here. What changes have you made when shifting to using in-house hardware, in-house software to AWS solutions? And what advice do you have to others to help maximize their success?
Okay, so the backup technology we used to have for our Oracle databases, we used RMAN, which is the standard Oracle backup and recovery tool. We had that being driven by a bunch of scripts, so we automated all the backups run through a cron job. The scripts call RMAN, which then calls out to some media management software. We're actually using a product from Symantec, and this actually manages the information about where the data backups go to tape. So we have RMAN call the Symantec software. That actually then calls the tape robots, and it does all the magic and stores everything where it knows, puts all the information back into a metadata catalog so we can recover. And we had a fairly large tape infrastructure handling these Oracle, we had a large tape infrastructure handling these Oracle backups because, as I said, we're doing something like 2,500 Oracle database backups a day, and some of these databases are 10 or more terabytes. You know, we were talking about a lot of data that we were pushing onto tape. The change we actually made was to write a little bit of code in the script so that we could call a product called Oracle Secure Cloud Backup Module. It's part of the Oracle Advanced Security option, which you can license directly from Oracle. And what that does is, instead of having the Symantec software talk to the tape libraries, the OSB module will just talk to S3. So we had to make a couple of tweaks in some Perl scripts. I think it took one of my chief engineers about 5 or 10 minutes to make that change. We downloaded the library, relinked the Oracle binaries, and started our testing. And we continued our testing, and we continued. And we found that it was phenomenally successful. We had no problems whatsoever. Everything just worked as it said on the box. So basically the effective change outside of testing that we had to do for engineering was about 5 or 10 minutes of work. We were stunned by the ease at which this change could be made and how successful it was. We did a lot of stuff to handle our particular security and encryption changes. We, again, have a lot of internal libraries which we call for security. We integrated those and we tested, obviously. There's a lot of key management that you need to be aware of, but really it was the testing that was the hard part for us. The actual engineering changes were very, very minor. That's it.
Anybody else want to take that question? All right, then I'm going to switch gears and I want to ask a question that may be interesting to those of you in the audience who have startups. I want to say for startups, what's the best advice for them on how to maximize what you get out of an AWS? And I want to start with Don, because he has a lot of experience in this area.
Yeah, so I think the summary for me would be to trust AWS, to trust the service, to trust the SLAs. I've been doing internet operations since 1994, and when Amazon made that fateful phone call for us in early 2006, I'll admit I was pretty skeptical. So when we put this bookstore's storage into production, we only did so as a backup. So we still maintained our on-premise storage, including its multiple replicas, and S3 was primarily for disaster recovery while we figured out if Amazon was really serious about this new product. Over time, of course, it became our sole and primary data store, but it took us a while to sort of get comfortable with that idea. And in the meantime, we continued to invest a lot of capital expense into our on-premise stuff that, in hindsight, I really wish we hadn't. We could have used that capital to do other great things, like hiring better engineers and designers, or more engineers and designers. So I just, of course, we're now 6 years into this. Clearly, Amazon believes that this is a big deal, and they're committed to it. So what wasn't too clear for me in 2006 should be blindingly clear to everybody here. But if it's not, put your faith in the services, focus on your business and what you're doing for your customers, and let Amazon handle, your compute and your storage and all of that sort of stuff.
That's good. Don brings up a really interesting point, which is around capital. As those of you who've done this for a while already know, when you're looking at building out a data center, what used to be in the old world is you had to make very major capital investments to get started, because you got to go buy all the hardware, buy all the software, and it's really a big chunk of change before you can load the first byte or serve your first customer. It's a very different model than what we have today when you look at using a cloud service like AWS. So I actually wanted to direct a question to Peter and ask him, one of the big advantages of AWS is you don't necessarily have to make that big capital outlay. It's really transformed Silicon Valley, by the way, and VC investment. But can you talk about how you guys maximize cost savings on AWS, or how you guys think about your investment there? That's Peter. Yeah, sorry.
One of the biggest cost savings that we utilize in Amazon, specifically around the EC2, are the use of reserved instances. The ability to bring up a server within minutes, load my applications on it, get through QA and dev with my engineers. Once they agree that a server is running at optimal performance, I can then say, hey, Amazon, I want to buy this server. I want to keep it running for a year or 3 years. And I buy that in advance. And what that does is pretty much halve the cost of running that instance for me. Other things it allows me to do is I don't have to worry about the back-end storage, how am I backing this instance up, disaster recovery. All that is taken care of by a single cost model. Other instances are being able to use S3 storage as a backup to my NAS. I mean, all my client file storage currently, as it sits in my data center, I have spinning disks. I've got archival systems that take files that aren't used in a long period of time and move them to nearline storage. I've got an entire replica of this another system at another site utilizing dedicated bandwidth between the sites, costing me thousands and thousands of dollars a month, aside from the support cost the hardware cost me. Being able to utilize new products, a product we're currently demoing is called Panzura. It gives me 25 terabyte of cached local storage, utilizing Amazon S3 as my backup. I am then able to say, God forbid, my entire White Plains data center gets wiped out. Right. I have a second box in my Queens data center. I can mount that same file store as it was when the lights went out in White Plains. And all it costs me is the S3 data store, which is maybe $1,000 a month. Just nothing you can build in your local data center can give you the flexibility and the permanence of your data that you can get through Amazon.
Cool. Yeah, Greg.
So cost control is certainly one of the key elements of effectively using the cloud. So if you think about the cloud and Amazon specifically, have the right initial use case, have a workload that's amenable to the cloud. The type of thing that Sonian does is actually a really good use case. Data goes in one direction, and then once we get it securely stored in the cloud, we can apply analytics, build full text indexes, take advantage of all the positive scale up, scale down capabilities. So getting a cost framework in place as you start your project is really key. It's something that we had to retrofit later into our project because we went from the old world of co-located, build out data centers, raise millions of dollars of VC in the previous project that I was part of, and what Amazon represented and the cloud in a broader category was the chance to kind of do the pay-as-you-go model. But you need the right tooling. Just building your own application using cost-aware engineering approaches that we heard about this morning at the keynote is the key to successfully taking advantage of all the positive attributes of the cloud. And if you don't adopt those types of philosophies, you're going to be in more trouble than in the old co-located world where you had kind of the hardware and the virtualization layers, but not really the flexibility and nimbleness of cloud dynamics. So you need a cost application framework. We built our own initially, and we continue to nurture it. But if you go down to Amazon Central, you'll see a bunch of companies doing cost control in the cloud, and you can bet the pros and cons of those. So you can either build your own or you can outsource it. And in the true spirit of the cloud, if it's not your core domain expertise, outsource what you can and focus on what you're really good at, right? That's why you're in the cloud in the first place. So don't get kind of waylaid with the extraneous kind of utilities that you need to bring to bear to take your application to production scale where you can be reliable and cost efficient. The other element of cost is don't be too thrifty if you get the idea of there's a false sense of complacency in the cloud if you're only deployed in one availability zone. We've seen problems where one AZ can have an issue, and then even if you have reserved instances or the concepts of kind of some insurance policies, if you haven't planned that out effectively, those things might not be beneficial to you. And there's a kind of a run on the bank mentality when there's a problem in an AZ. A bunch of customers go and spin up resources in other availability zones just to have some spare capacity, and that can really be a contention point. So use AZs, architect around AZs, embrace that as your cost model. It may seem like you're spending more money, but you have to self-insure yourself in the cloud, and that's a common theme is bugs happen. It can happen at the infrastructure layer. It can happen in your code. It can happen in the frameworks that you use. It's not necessarily your bug, but you inherit that bug, so you've got to be protected, and don't be too penny-wise, pound-foolish.
Yeah, there's a strong theme from you. Redundant, redundant, redundant.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask, oh, sorry, Jeff, you want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something on cost. We talk a lot about costs and reducing our own costs, and obviously we need to maintain a disciplined approach. But one thing that NASDAQ has been really looking at is reducing the cost for our customers, and the products that we've created in the cloud have really helped to do that. Market Replay, Data on Demand, and the newly launched FinCloud is really going to reduce the cost to our customers. Where they're storing terabytes, petabytes of data. And it's all duplicative data, or at least a lot of it's duplicative data where every firm is storing that same information. So, you store it once, and then, customers are obviously able to reduce their storage costs. So, thinking about it at another angle of the customer cost and, making really a revenue model out of cost savings.
That's nice. Actually, I'd like to drill on that point a little more, and I've got a question for you on this one, Jeff. I wanted to talk a little bit about TCO for on-premise storage versus storage in the cloud. This is something a lot of customers come to me to talk about. Usually they'll have built their own TCO models, and they're trying to understand when you include all the different aspects, storage, power, staff, how does on-premise compare to the cloud? And Jeff, I was wondering if you could comment on how you guys do this analysis and your recommendations for the audience.
Sure. So, we as NASDAQ operate a few data centers. As an exchange function, we have a number of matching engines that are extremely critical that we need to, maintain control over. But, in having that data center, there are certain times that we can leverage that for products. But, that kind of gets to the $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 of cost to order servers, to understand what the capacity is, to manage the capacity. We're at 80%. Do we need to increase now? How much do we need to increase to to buy more servers or SAN storage? You know, I mean, you think about racking and stacking and power and networking and support and tech refreshes and things of that nature. I mean, we deal with that, you know, on a daily basis for things that we have to deal with that. So, you know, reducing cost by allowing somebody else to do that, you know, is important, especially from a business standpoint, you know, for us. So, you know, we try and offload where we can. Certainly, there are a lot of things that we can't offload, at least not yet. I don't think the industry's ready for matching engines in the cloud.
Yep. I think Jeff's particularly good to comment on TCO since he's from NASDAQ. I assume he's pretty good with the finance stuff. I'd actually like to open up the floor to you guys to see if folks have any questions. What I'm going to do